This is Outnumbered. I'm Andrea Tantaros, and here with us today, host of Kennedy on our sister network, Fox Business's Kennedy, also from FBN, co-host of After the Bell, Melissa Francis, National Review columnist and Fox News contributor Kat Timpf is back, and today's hashtag One Lucky Guy, executive producer, the boss of Imus in the Morning, Bernard McGuirk, and he is outnumbered in the afternoon. Welcome back, McGuirk.
Thank you, ladies. Honor and an honor to be here. Excuse me. Merry Christmas. I mean,
Merry Christmas.
Are we feeling it here in New York City?
Yes.
It's like
You're feeling it.
Yeah. Imus in terms of being outnumbered. I mean, what is it like to be with us as opposed to him?
Oh, he's much more of a pussycat than you and better looking than you ladies, I must say.
I think you may
Bernie,
the other way. Yeah. Yes.
It's possible. I'm confused.
Yes.
All right, let's get right to the news. New questions about the red flags missed in the San Bernardino terror attack long before 14 people were killed. The former neighbor of one of the killers, Enrique Marquez, making his first court appearance last night. Now, he's facing several charges, including conspiring to provide material support to terrorists. And he's accused of helping to plot other attacks years ago that were never carried out. Adam Housley is live outside the detention center in Riverside, California. Adam?
Yeah, Andrea, those other attacks you talk about in 2011 and 2012 are what the terrorism charges are related to. As for the attack 2 weeks ago, that was basically providing weapons he was charged with, providing support, if you will. So it's very, very interesting here how people are responding. A lot of people are very upset with the fact that for about 5 years, Saeed Farouk and Enrique Marquez, who was charged yesterday, basically operated under the radar. They had weapons, they had plans in place. In fact, there were a number of terror plots that they had, including two that I'll mention right now. One was to attack the 91 freeway here in the Inland Empire, where they were going to throw pipe bombs on the freeway, stop traffic, and then basically one would shoot from the hillside as people got out of their cars, and the other one would go car to car and shoot people. Another attack was on a school, the junior college in Riverside Community College, where they would throw the pipe bombs inside the cafeteria, and as students ran out, they would pick them off. Using these weapons that were purchased by Marquez. Marquez purposely purchased those weapons because he knew that Farouk, at least they thought that Farouk may not get the weapons because of his Middle Eastern look, according to the 37-page affidavit. There's a lot of stuff in here, including a 911 call after the attack, when Marquez called the 911 operators and basically said that his neighbor was the one that committed these crimes. Also in here about how for 10 straight days, as part of our reporting we've been talking about, the reason why they hadn't brought him in so far was because he was talking. Well, now we know for sure that this was the case because for 10 straight days, he spoke to investigators, and during those times, each day he waived his Miranda rights. There's a lot of stuff in here, but noticeably absent are as much information about Tashveen Malik, the wife here, and obviously her international connections to this. That's not really in here very much. And there isn't as much about the attack 2 weeks ago as, of course, we would like, primarily because this focuses on Enrique Marquez. Andrea?
Well, Adam, I think you answered. A lot of people were wondering why it took so long for the FBI to finally prosecute him, even though he was cooperating. But it seems like there were a lot of signs there. He was radicalized by the couple. Adam, what sticks out to you as the biggest sign that was missed, and why?
Well, I think what really frustrates a lot of people, and I can tell you investigators and others who are watching this case very closely, is are these guys operated online? They're on Facebook. At one point, Farouk on Facebook, and Marquez on Facebook said they might be arrested for terrorism and having a sham marriage, which is one of the charges also, a sham marriage, basically. But it's really interesting and I think disturbing that for these 5 years, these guys could plan these things. They could be going, looking at the magazines online provided by Al Qaeda, for example. But also disturbing to me, and it still hasn't been laid out, is how did they connect with the wife? You might remember Tashveen Malik was radicalized before she came here, was trained before she came here. Investigators have told me she came here to kill. So where did that come from? There wasn't a dating site where these people came up in contact with each other. There was some other reason, and that's not obviously listed in here because it's not part of the Marquez case, but a lot of people want to know what's in that. And I think that's probably the most disturbing thing is what's not in this 37-page affidavit. Andrea?
All right, Adam, thank you. And in the meantime, Bernie, what do you make of all this?
Well, the question is, was it an intelligence failure? And that's obvious. It's like asking after a building collapse, was there an engineering failure? Of course. He mentioned Inspire magazine, this genius here, and the other dummy that got shot up after the San Bernardino attacks. They're online looking at this Inspire magazine. Why can't we ban that? Why can't? Isn't there some way that Silicon Valley can stop these magazines, or stop that magazine in particular? Isn't there some way to stop Twitter, the Twitter sphere, from emanating from Syria, Pakistan, places like that? Isn't there something we can do, from Silicon Valley, working with the government and our intel community, to prevent this kind of communication and inspiration and whatever it is, radicalization? I think there is, and there's just not a willingness to do so.
Yeah, there is something that the government can do, Melissa. I mean, you see the way that they go after intellectual property. I mean, I've tried to post concert videos before online on Twitter and Facebook. I get a note right away and they're taken down. The same thing happens with child pornography. You can't post these things because they're on top of it. So if the White House wanted, they could use the DOJ to work with these squishy liberals in Silicon Valley and say to Zuckerberg, hey, get with the program or you're going to face some charges.
Or at least, I mean, I don't know about preventing communication and that sort of thing. We go down the slippery slope of, I mean, you think about China and how you can't access the internet. But there's definitely something to the idea of why can't we tell who's going online to look at Inspire? I mean, at the very least, if that data was collected, we know the government is fantastic at collecting data. Couldn't they compare that over time using an algorithm to people that are doing a number of common things? Like bells would go off, and you could write an algorithm for this. If people were going and looking at Inspire, and then they were also using keywords on Facebook and whatever else, and they were also doing this. I mean, there's a number of common things that people that are acting out are doing, and it does seem like there would be a way to go out there and have bells go off and go, hey, listen, there's a person in San Bernardino who's doing like 7 of the 10 things that make us nervous. Somebody should stop by and lift up the garage door and see if there's anything in there.
There's no question, Kennedy. My Blue Oyster Cult video never made it online for more than 10 minutes because they took it down. Why can't they do the same with terrorist chatter or propaganda or jihadist videos?
I mean, that's what a lot of people are asking because it obviously points to an intelligence failure. You know, we have this these mass bulk collection programs, and regardless of how they've been modified in the very recent past, they were in full effect when Farouk and Marquez were having their bromance in Riverside. You know, they met in 2005. Marquez converted in 2007, and then they were planning these very elaborate attacks. The one on the 91 freeway, a very busy freeway in Southern California, into the Inland Empire that Housley was talking about. You know, they were going to throw pipe bombs and they were going to take out law enforcement. I mean, that was their plan. So obviously they left enough. And I think the problem is the reliance on the digital footprint and the metadata. It actually makes intelligence collecting a little bit lazy, and you end up going after the wrong thing.
Right. Not only that, though, Kat, I think the human intelligence piece of this also failed. And it's a little scary. I mean, you look at the pictures of this guy. He looks like a total dope, like a real goofball, like with a weird hat.
Genius,
Look at him. I mean, he looks like a total dope.
Like the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids thing.
Exactly. The dad, a younger version of the dad. But he's very dangerous. I mean, this is how they got their weapons. He was radicalized, which is scary that they could radicalize the neighbor. And no one seemed to notice this in 5 years. Doesn't he have friends or family that said it's a little weird he's posting these videos?
5 years. Like you said, 10 minutes your video didn't make it 10 minutes. And Melissa, like you said, there's all these things that happen, and that's over a process. You don't just suddenly get involved in a terrorist attack. You become a little radicalized, you become more radicalized, start buying weapons. Within 5 years, we have this huge counterterrorism force. What are they doing? What are they doing if they're not finding these things?
No less a figure than California Senator Feinstein went up to Silicon Valley to ask them for help on this. They rejected her. Tim Cook and
That's
company.
actually not true.
They didn't want a law.
They shield so many. I mean, you should look at the history of the refilled requests.
Unless she's lying,
by tech companies with law enforcement.
And unless she's lying, it is true. She said that.
The only way to do it is for Attorney General Lynch to stand up at a podium and say, I will prosecute any of these companies using Supreme Court precedent of Holder versus Humanitarian Law Project. If you harbor terrorists, allow them to communicate, you will be prosecuted, period. And I guarantee you they'd spring into action.